Bueno, estimado vicerrector, director de la escuela, autoridades, comunidad universitaria, queridos profesores, estudiantes e invitados. Como en años anteriores, quiero dedicar mis primeras palabras a todos aquellos que han colaborado en la realización de este acto. Quería dar las gracias en primer lugar a la señora Heringuer por su inestimable ayuda en la organización de este viaje y que podamos disfrutar hoy de su lección magistral. A todo el personal de la Universidad de Málaga por su apoyo y colaboración. A todas las empresas que han colaborado y que sin su ayuda no habría sido posible la realización de este evento. Finalmente, quería dar las gracias a la delegación de estudiantes de la escuela y especialmente a todos los estudiantes que han ayudado en la organización de esta conferencia inaugural. Esta escuela, poco a poco, se va consolidando. Este año celebramos nuestro 14º aniversario. Aún somos una institución joven, pero que en este corto periodo ha conseguido posicionarse y ocupar su sitio entre las mejores escuelas de arquitectura del país. En concreto, como ya se ha comentado, este año hemos conseguido tener una de las notas de corte más altas de las escuelas públicas españolas. Desde los inicios, nuestro centro ha tenido un fuerte compromiso con la sociedad que la acoge y a la que se debe. No debemos olvidar que pertenecemos a una universidad pública. Hace unos 2 años, el responsable de Refugee se puso en contacto conmigo para pedirme que los estudiantes ayudaran en un proyecto solidario, uno más de los que se acometen en nuestra escuela. Aunque había poco tiempo y estaba la programación docente montada, entendimos que lo que se nos pedía tenía la suficiente importancia para que, entre todos, adaptáramos lo que hiciese falta para poder acometer el reto que se nos planteaba. Este era proyectar un centro de acogida para personas migrantes en el puerto de Málaga. Durante estos 2 cursos, con la complicidad e ilusión de todos los estudiantes de tercer curso, se han realizado más de 40 proyectos que pueden ustedes visitar en la exposición montada en el vestíbulo de nuestra escuela. En 1939, el premio Nobel Vicente Alexander escribió un poema titulado Ciudad del Paraíso, dedicado a Málaga, donde vivió toda su infancia. Los que aquí estamos tenemos la suerte de vivir en ciudades que están mucho más cerca del paraíso que del infierno. Lo tenemos todo, casi todo, y tenemos la dicha de poder disfrutar de una situación que a otros muchos se les antoja inalcanzable. Situaciones de guerra, desplazados, refugiados, catástrofes naturales de toda índole, que casi siempre afectan más a los más necesitados, requieren de una reflexión y de un cambio de estrategia que permita un mayor equilibrio. La masiva llegada de personas migrantes al puerto de Málaga, que lo que va de año ha duplicado con creces a los llegados en 2017, requiere adoptar medidas urgentes que permitan dignificar y humanizar las condiciones de atención para aquellos que arriban a nuestro puerto buscando un futuro mejor, ese paraíso al que hacía referencia nuestro premio Nobel. De todo es conocido las terribles situaciones que deben sufrir los que se aventuran a cruzar el mar, muchas veces embravecidos, sufriendo bajas temperaturas y situaciones de hacinamiento. De entre los miles que se atreven, muchos son menores de edad, algunos niños con o sin sus padres, que como vemos en estas impactantes imágenes de Lorenzo Carnero, no pierden la sonrisa pese a la dificultad. Este año tenemos la suerte de contar entre nosotros con una de las arquitectas más influyentes del panorama europeo e internacional. Ha sido siempre voluntad de esta escuela acercar a nuestros estudiantes y profesores los mejores conferenciantes posibles. Nuevas miradas que deberían ampliar su percepción del mundo que nos rodea. Desde los campos de la arquitectura, el arte, el pensamiento, todos los que tienen algo que decir tienen las puertas abiertas de esta escuela ávida de conocimiento. Anna Heringer desarrolla su labor como arquitecta desde el año 2004. En ese año proyecta la escuela METI en Bangladesh, proyecto que pertenece a su ejercicio de final de licenciatura y que a la postre se ha convertido en un icono de cómo afrontar proyectos en lugares donde la falta de medio y personal cualificado impiden ejecutar soluciones complejas. En este caso se afronta el problema desde el conocimiento de la situación real. Ella colaboró previamente con alguna ONG de la zona, con materiales básicos como el barro o el bambú y la colaboración de los vecinos de la zona. Se ejecuta este proyecto que ejemplifica, como ninguno, el buen hacer de quien hoy nos visita, demostrando que las carencias bien empleadas pueden convertirse en oportunidades, creando espacios de gran calidad y belleza. Pese a su juventud, la proyección de su estudio se ha visto reconocida a nivel internacional con proyectos que siempre intentan no huir de su compromiso por realizar edificios más humanos y más sostenibles, aplicando técnicas ancestrales como las tierras apisonadas, que de su mano han vuelto a ocupar un importante espacio dentro de los detalles constructivos de sus obras, junto con otros más actuales de todos conocidos. La señora Heringer ha sido distinguida con el premio Aga Khan. Su obra ha sido expuesta en museos como el MoMA de Nueva York, la Bienal de Venecia, París, Sao Paulo, Londres, entre otros. En la actualidad es profesora visitante de la Universidad de Harvard. Vivimos en un periodo de crisis global, en lo social, en lo económico y sobre todo en lo que afecta a nuestro medio ambiente. Basta con ver las noticias de los últimos meses para darse cuenta de la complejidad del mundo en el que vivimos. Con su permiso y usando el título de su ponencia, deseamos y apostamos para que la arquitectura que enseñamos a nuestros estudiantes sea una verdadera herramienta para mejorar la vida de las personas. Señora Heringer, para esta modesta Escuela de Arquitectura es un honor y un placer poder escuchar sus palabras. Sea bienvenida a nuestra universidad y espero que nuestro auditorio disfrute de su lección magistral. Muchas gracias.
Buenos días. Thank you very much for the invitation, and especially thank you to you, Antonio, for taking me here. I was very happy yesterday, or nervous actually. I was about to get my ticket at the check-in in Boston, and then they told me, yes, you have a ticket, but you have no seat because we are overbooked. And I said, yes, but I have to come here. I'll sit on the toilet if I have to for 8 hours, but get me to Malaga. So here I am, and I'm very happy that I am. Architecture is, for me, first of all, a tool to improve lives. And I think we have a huge power and also responsibility to really make a change. We can contribute massively to climate change or really take care of our planet. We can enhance a social justice and we can enhance a cultural diversity with our profession. And I think this is a huge responsibility. Yeah, it was the end of... Oh, there's actually a picture missing. It was the end of October in the mountains in Austria, and I was on a field trip with my students from Zurich. And when we reached the high valley, it was really, really cold. I told the students, well, I have not booked any accommodation, no hut, no hostel for the night. The challenge is to build a home for one night, because we are all architects, so we at least should know how to build a shelter for one night. And that was the result. It was not really luxury, it was not really comfortable, but we all survived. And it was a really challenge. I mean, the students at first, when they heard that, they were like somewhere thinking, yeah, we're gonna build a hut and we're gonna sleep in it like we did in our childhood, somewhere like thinking there must be a plan B, but there was no plan B. But we were all, it was a great experience. First, it was during the time where the refugees came also to Europe, so we could really feel how important shelter is, really the essence of architecture. And then secondly, it was great to see that there are a lot of resources given by nature for free, and all we need is the sensitiveness to see those resources and the creativity to use them. I found myself in a very similar situation when I was going to build a school in Rudapur in Bangladesh. I first lived there when I was 19 years old for a year with the NGO Dipshika. And what I have learned there was that the most important strategy for development is to concentrate on existing resources and trying to make the best out of them and not getting depending on external factors. So in terms of material, I didn't have to look far to find suitable ones. They were right under my feet, the dirt, the mud, and the bamboo that was just growing all around. And in terms of energy, there were a lot of people. That was the main energy resource. When we think of alternative energies, we always think of solar, we think of wind, but in fact the human energy is also there, and it's a very creative source of energy. And if we don't use it, we have more than 7 billion people, if we don't use it, we have a social problem, because we all need work, we need something to do. So people were happy to have jobs, and I was happy to have a great team. We had those guys as mixing machines. We had no real tools, but we had, I know that Spanish like bulls, and they were having a different temper than here. They were much more quiet, otherwise we could not mix with them. We had also tried it with cows before, but the cows were too intelligent for this job. They were like kind of elegantly always stepping in the holes of the first round, while about the water buffaloes, they didn't care. They were just stepping into it ignorantly and mixing the mud and the water and the straw that is in the mix perfectly. Then this mix was brought on top of the foundation, and then with a spade, it's just cut then in accurate shape. And that tool is more or less the only thing that is needed for building the walls. So that mix that would be cut down would then come into the next mix and then the next layer. So in this way, the walls would come up. The technique is called COP. It's a historic technique. It's used in many parts in the world. And in terms of bamboo, well, if you design something far away, you have some good ideas, but they might not be totally reliable then when you come on the site. So we tested those techniques in Germany. We made tests on the Technical University in Berlin with Christoph Ziegert, and all worked out perfectly. But then we came to the site and the bamboo looked like this. And also the sizes didn't fit, so we had asked the German volunteer there several times if it's like, if it's 10 centimeter, kind of the diameter, but they were not the diameter, the cross-section, but he was calculating the 10 centimeters diameter. So we had huge difference in all the structural calculations. They didn't fit anymore. And first the structural engineer said, we only have to build the ground floor. We can only build the ground floor. We cannot build the bamboo structure with these bamboos, but we figured it out somehow. What we did is that this is my cousin, Anna Heringer, who is a basket weaver scout and a carpenter, so the perfect combinations for the bamboo lashings and the techniques. And that is Christoph Ziegert, the engineer. So what we did, we built the mock-up one by one. And then the problem that we first faced, that the bamboo was curved, we used it as an advantage. And then you see it's slightly curved. And then we made a test with everyone, like the maximum load. We put as many people as were possible on this little mock-up. So that was our actual structural test. And then you see it became even. So that's how we tested the things in Bangladesh. No calculations in the end. And when you remember the curved bamboo, it was quite a challenge to get the straight beams of 12.5 meters. But even that we could figure out. And then, after about 6 months, the school looked like this. I also had, for the realization, a partner called Eike Roswag, a Berlin architect. And the school is basically really load-bearing earth walls without cement, just with straw inside. And then the second floor is the bamboo. And I wanted to kind of bring these two elements together, this kind of groundness and this protective feeling of the ground and the earth walls, and then this more airy feeling of the bamboo. And what I really wanted to show with the school is that you can build more than just small and dark huts with these local materials, but really also large structures. So when you come inside, the school has also a lot of caves areas. I was basically trying to remember the spaces that I liked when I was a kid, and I think that those kind of archaic spaces, they go for every child. It doesn't matter if it's Bavaria, Germany, or Spain, or Bangladesh. I think this is kind of a very archaic and humane notion that you want to kind of nestle down somewhere and really have this very protective feeling, introverted feeling. And then on the top floor, it's the opposite. You have the overview, and the Leitnitz is more the treehouse. The children all signed with the names on the door, and they rightfully did so because they also came in every afternoon to help building the school. And we had especially 2 teachers that were only there to include them in the building process. And I think that's very important because even when you're small, you want to be taken serious and you want to be included in the real world and not just, I mean, in our society, we have the tendency to amuse the children afar from the real world, but actually everyone wants to be needed, and the children felt extremely proud to be part of this process as well. And the thing is, when you work with mud, you can actually really include a lot of people. We also had people with disabilities in the team. We had people that were really old already. So that's the nice thing, that it is a very inclusive material where you can involve a lot of people. And I think you can all imagine how it feels when you're standing in front of that school after 6 months as a small girl or as a boy or as a worker who never went to school, and then how that feels to know that you did this all with your own hands, basically really only your own hands with the dirt that you find underneath your feet. And that gives just such an enormous boost of confidence and trust in yourself and also in the team and the community and also in the materials. Mud has a very bad image all over the world. It's said to be the material of the poor. But in fact, mud is very durable if you respect certain rules. And the first rule is a good foundation, good boots, so that the water cannot come through the ground. And then second rule is a good roof, so that the water cannot drop in the walls from the top. And the third rule is erosion control. Just imagine a hill that has no stones, no trees, then the water is running down over the hill very fast, and that gives the erosion. When it's slow, then the mud walls can deal with it. You know, the speed is slowed down of the water through these horizontal speed breakers on a big scale, and on a small scale in the mix there must be a lot of roughness in the mix, like straw or like stones, that really make the pace of the water slower, so that the water is running down slow. The thing is, when the mud walls turn wet, the clay particles expand and the water cannot penetrate deep in the wall. This only is possible when the walls are not stabilized with cement. So there is no stabilizer inside. And then it's only the very first parts that are getting a bit soft, but it's also drying out very, very fast, the walls again. So, and then it's kind of stabilizing itself. And through this drying and taking humidity and absorbing it again, there's a kind of a natural crystallization process happening. And after 4 years, those walls became extremely strong. It's like stone. It's really like it became extremely strong. And they facing a lot of horizontal monsoon rains, and still the walls are taking that, and it's really no problem. They're facing this harsh climate. So you see a little bit that this is kind of the aging of the facade, but they're really strong. And if a corner or something is breaking down, you just can take this broken part, make it wet, make the wall wet, and put it back, and it looks just as before. I wish that would work with human beings too. And earth is the only material kind of that you can take from the ground and give it back. You use it, you can recycle it 100 times or more without any loss of quality, and you can return it to the ground without any scars. And you can plant your garden on top. So that's really the only material that is that much sustainable. In terms of economic sustainability, it was interesting for me because I lived in the village, and most of the days with the workers I went to the local market, and I could see how they spent the money that they just got, because they were day laborers, they got every day their salary. So then I could see how they spent the money, and they would buy the vegetables from the neighbors, or they would get a new haircut, or order something from the local tailor. So the money immediately got invested in the local community. And so the school was much more than just a building for the kids. The school became really a catalyst for local development. And that was actually the part that made me most happy, that it's really, you can really make a change to this. And in the end, when I hope that in the end of my life or my career, when I'm adding up all the building budgets that were in my hands, I really hope that the most part is staying with people, with craftsmen, and not getting in the pockets of some big industries. And I think, you know, we really have, I mean, architecture is a lot of money involved. And as designers, we can choose the technology, we can design the process in a way that most people benefit, and we can design in a way that, I mean, the choice of a material is not just an aesthetic choice or a structural choice, it also is a choice how the money is distributed. And through that, we have a lot of power to really influence the society. Yeah, the first building got some awards that enabled me to make the second buildings in Udaipur. That is a vocational school for electrical training, the DESI building. And in this project, the main motto or philosophy or aim was to motivate people to go 2 stories in mud. There's a lot of scarcity of land in Bangladesh. Land is very, very precious. And nevertheless, the people kind of expand horizontally with 1-story structures. And I thought it would be just give so much change if they just put this new structure on top and keep the land for food cultivation, biodiversity or biocapacity. So we really wanted to do this, and it's a small step, but if you think that hundreds of millions of people in Bangladesh are living in the rural areas in 1-story buildings, if you just could add that and keep the rest for food cultivation, that would make a huge change. Although it's just a small step. I also tried to include more craftsmanship than in the first school. Like, for example, the basket weavers, they are also getting less jobs now because the Chinese plastic buckets are getting also cheaper than their work. So we wanted to show different possibilities how to use that material and how to use that skills, and I did kind of the basket weaving in a bigger scale in that building. And it was also important to show it's just bamboo. It's not different to the bamboo that is used in every simple household, but to show that normally when people are having some money in their hands, they're investing in material and not in craftsmanship. So normally when a teacher, and there are a teacher living in this house, and a teacher would buy bricks, would go for aluminium if possible, or steel. And I wanted to show that it would be much better to invest this money in craftsmanship to really improve the local techniques, and that would make it equally beautiful, or make it, you would also get prestige and you would also get beauty, but in a much more fair and just way, because this money goes not to the aluminium guy or the steel guy, but it goes to the craftsman who's working with the bamboo. And the people really love that space up there. It's kind of a very precious space for them. It has a very poetic quality with light and this kind of filtered ornaments. Can we do the project a little bit sharper, or is that difficult? No. Yeah, with this project was interesting that these were actually the working drawings. We were building, when we started to build the building, I had no section, I had no elevation, I just had some sort of feeling in my belly how the building could look like. And it was growing very organically. So every day I would just sit down after work and sketch the next day's work. We did a lot of mock-ups on the site, one by one, or just, draw the windows or whatever on the facade directly. So it was a very organic process, no pre-planning in a way, and it worked out, which was really great. And it was also very huge support that I had a great team like Montoram Shaw, who is right now handling the new site, Stefan Neumann, and then also, who is here, and then also Konaka Hazibul Kobe from the Prague University, who was there with his students to be part of that process as well. Women on the site was something I really wanted to have during the Métis school already. That didn't work out. They told me, it's not our tradition and culture that women are working as construction workers. And I had accepted it, but because we had really beautiful students also from the capital, from Dhaka with us, the flirt level on the site was pretty high. And when I was walking through the village, I could feel that the wives of the workers were really staring at me in a not so good way. And I thought, my God, they have really stress at home. And that's the last thing I wanted to have, that they had caused some social friction amongst the families. So I talked to the wives and asked them if they would like to join the site as well. And then they said, yes, we would like to, but don't tell our husbands. And then they came, the next day they came, the husbands came, the workers came, and 5 minutes later, their wives appeared. And they were not so happy, you know, you could see like really long faces, like, so now the fun is over. But after 1 week or 2 weeks, they started flirting with their own wives on the site. And that was a very nice feeling, because they would queue in the same queue to get the same amount of money. They were working as a team on the site, which really enhanced the dialogue. And you know, they were just on the same level. They would go to the tea stall afterwards together. And that was a different situation than before, and it was very nice. Yeah, students on the site was also great to have. I think it's very important as a future architect or also architect that you have a feeling how much energy goes into a building, you know, what it means, what craftsmanship means, and to understand kind of the process of the sites. So we had students designing and working. So they were, during the evening they would design, and during the day they would work on the site. And we had students from Austria, from Linz, and from Bangladesh, from Dhaka with us. And what was very important is still to motivate, especially the Bangladeshi architects are very fond of bricks, because it's something, I think, that comes even from the colonial times, where the British already built the houses out of bricks. And then it continued with all the development work on aid, you know, the German engineers or whatever who came with the bricks and concrete buildings. So there's a long history. But the problem is this: when you leave Dhaka, you cross miles of this chimney and brick fields and brick production things, and they just, you know, the CO2 emissions, the smog that is around the city is just unbearable. It goes without any filters right into the air. They fire charcoal, car wires, whatever. And this is just incredible. If you think you could just take the raw material, you could take the clay and build fantastic houses that are actually better with the humidity in this climate than the bricks, but still this, I mean, that really makes my heart cry every time when I see this. I think, why do we put all these carbon emissions in? Why do we try to make something better, although it's already best possible, which the raw material, the clay? So there's a lot of need to change the image of mud, that we don't need this kind of scenario. Ooh. Okay, so what we did was also, that was actually the initiative of the Bangladeshi architects and the Institute of Architects and also the government there. We built a pavilion. They wanted to learn more about modern earthen structures, and we built a pavilion. So these are also from the government, kind of housing models for more sustainable living, and this was our little pavilion to show that actually earth is a wonderfully sustainable material. And it was done with Martin Rauch also involved. And this is the next building that is right now under construction. It's a center for people with disabilities. And on the top floor we will have a little garment factory, but a very fair and sustainable one. I'm right now exhibiting this project, the Textile Project, at the Venice Biennale under the motto Free Space. But for me, this is not a textile project. It's actually a project that enables the women to stay within their homes, in their villages, where they can build their homes out of the dirt, out of the mud with their own hands, where they have the children are having a wonderful playground in the village. They can take care of their older parents. They can move around safely because they know the local networks. And this is all this kind of freedom and independence they lose when they have to go into the cities where they have the factories and work in the factories, where they have more or less only the TV that gives them some freedom in the night, and the rest is really just modern slavery work for me. So that kind of project would also accommodate it then in the second floor. So talking again about earth and architecture, we always think this is a very small niche. This is something that is just, you know, for some parts in the world. In fact, about 3 billion people are living in earthen structures, and Earth has a history in all continents. In most of the places, Earth is everywhere available. We have a project in Spain, close to Ronda, together with Ramon and also Antonio, and there's beautiful mud. We did tests, we were like freaking out because the quality is so good. So this material is there everywhere. So you need, from earthen structures, you need manual labor or a lot of labor force, and you need earth. And that's all you need to make really beautiful architecture. And I wonder why we don't train our architects, engineers and craftsmen more in this technique. Because if you had to invent a new material that doesn't need CO2 that in its production, or just very little if you use more machinery, but very little in comparison to concrete, that is very, very stable, that can be recycled as often as you want without quality loss, that can return to the earth, to the planet without any contamination, that is healthy for the people because it can perfectly balance the indoor humidity and gives really a very comfortable indoor climate that absorbs smells, that is acoustically good for use. So all these things, if you had, and beyond that, very beautiful, and you can design in various ways, that would be very difficult to challenge to design a new building or invent a new material like that. So, but it's probably a part of our human nature that we are always fascinated by inventing new things, you know, and it's conquering new things. But I think there's a lot of wisdom in our old cultures as well, and we should really invest a lot of energy and passion and time also in improving already existing things that have been proven very reliable since thousands of years. So still very few architecture faculties are really teaching this subject, or teaching earthen structures. So I brought the mod to Harvard at Boston. So what we did, was a project together with Martin Rauch in the Loeb Fellowship. So the Graduate School of Design is a very gray building, which you see just a little bit in the back. It's gray as concrete building, modern building, from the modernist times. And we extended that building, which is called Gund Hall, into a mud hall. A small earthen structures. We got together 150 students, faculty members, also students from MIT and Rhode Island School, and also just the people from Cambridge that passed by, or tourists. So they all came in and joined and turned this area in front of the university in a very nice zone. So you would students would do the lunch breaks. Their professors would have a meeting. Then skaters, of course, would come and ride the ramp. Children would also be there. People would just sit down and read books. In the night, even homeless people would stay there. So it was a total different mix that usually this university doesn't have so much there. And what was especially interesting for me to see, that the clay in Boston is gray, and it just looked like concrete, exactly like concrete. So you wouldn't see it from a visual thing that this is mud or this is something different. But people were constantly touching the walls, and I could see that we are perceiving architecture not just in a visual way, but there's something more that it connects us. And I think human beings have a very old connection with Earth. I mean, when we just think of our old methodology, there is always a link to Earth. I mean, in the Bible, we are even made out of Earth. So there is, also in a lot of other cultures, there is a deep connection. We have a lot of poems and songs about Earth. Well, we don't have that much about concrete. So I think that there is something really within our human beings that really has a very strong connection, and also physically and also mentally, you really feel very protected and very well and comforted somehow in being surrounded in earth walls. So I think design-build projects where the students can really test their design ideas in real scale is something very important that we do a lot. That was a project, again, with Martin Rauch in Zurich, at the ETH Zurich. Students designed 2 houses for orphans and a community hall, which they then implemented during the summer breaks or semester breaks in Tanzania. That is right now still under construction. So we trained the workers there. They continued this structure. And what was interesting is that the Swiss embassy heard about this project, and the architect who was in charge for the embassy building, he thought it would be actually nice to have a rammed earth wall in the conference room. So they asked the villagers if they could make them an earth wall. So they would produce the wall in a very low-tech way in the village, and then it was kind of cut into pieces, prefabrication method. Then Martin helped them, to construct this kind of lifting thing element, and then they installed it in the embassy in the Swiss embassy in Dar es Salaam. So this was very important for the villagers to see that this is not just a material for them because they have no money, but that is actually something so precious that it's even represented in the Swiss embassy. And they could also make a living out of it. I mean, that they got hired elsewhere, that was very important for them. So the next project, which I'm doing right now at the Harvard Graduate School of Design in Boston. So we went all together to Bangladesh, to the Rohingya refugee camp, which is supposed to be one of the largest or the largest at the moment. So we went there for about 10 days to Bangladesh. And that moment I will never forget, when we just went up there and we saw this sheer endless camp. It's a dimension that is really hard to take. It's just incredible. And then of course also getting more into it and understanding what the people had experienced in this genocide in Myanmar. And we also of course did more a research part before, and what was interesting for us was to see the materials that are coming in, the flow of materials that are coming into this camp, and there's a lot of things that are being, from food elements, then sleeping mats, buckets, of course, a lot of lashing materials, clothes. Then a lot is needed also mosquito nets, like this barbed wire, tools, tents, of course, and food, the basic food, and again tents. And then what the next thing, I mean, this is the situation what it is. The main structures are made out of bamboo, that's bamboo and tarpaulin, plastic folia. So if we compared the greatest family needs, they need most is solar lamps, is stoves, and is kitchen material, and also of course in terms of building, it's mainly bamboo, it's mainly tarpaulin, this kind of plastic tents, and ropes. These are the most elements, and this all has to be brought in the camp. There's nothing there of it. So this is exactly what you see. So the tarpaulin and the bamboo, that gives the main structure here. And if you compare what is natural material that is coming in and inorganic material, the main part is really material that comes that is not organic, which is also kind of waste after a few time. And especially tarpaulin is the main material that is used for the tents and also the roof structures. And if you compare again what is organic, it's just the bamboo, it's a small part, but the biggest part is coming out of plastic materials, more or less. And what is the only very small part, this is earth. So the rest is all, what is coming in is a little bit of bamboo, again, bamboo, and the rest is all plastic materials that is coming in, also oil-based materials. And for me it was unbelievable because people are sitting basically on mud. So it's a huge resource there. They're sitting directly on the building material. And then all these things is a material that is leaving a lot of waste to them afterwards. So you see, this is all the building material. It's full, the whole camp is full of building material. And still, it's just a small portion because the organizations don't trust in this material and they don't have the know-how to build with it. What is happening already is that people start on their own, taking the mud and trying to build with mud walls. But these are the families who have been in Bangladesh a little bit longer, like 3 years or 6 years. And in Bangladesh, there are in the surrounding a lot of mud houses around. So they use these techniques. But where they come from, they use mainly timber structures, and that is not available in that camp. So they don't have this know-how so much in the camp. So again, if we see how long this material or what they are made of, well, it's very difficult to read, but it's all synthetic materials. And if you look at the lifespan, the only thing that really lasts are the buckets. Anything else, like the tents, they have about a year guarantee, and beyond it could last longer, but the guarantee is just for 1 year. So what's coming in is kind of, in terms of ecological footprint, huge. Also, I mean, if you think they're all oil-based, so oil to degrade, it takes a very long time, also millions of years that goes into the oil. So there's a very kind of, it's a paradox. There's a lot of time in this materials, in the way it's produced, but also in the way it is decaying. But they are not very permanent, they're very impermanent, just a couple of years. Although the mud could be seen as something that is just in terms of, it can stand a long time if it's built in a good way. It can last for a very long time, but it could also easily return and leave no negative impact if the people one day could really return. So it would be just a perfect material. Nevertheless, it's not used. Yeah, this was the research of Tommy Schapenkott, one of my students there. So what we did in this workshop, or during our time there, we really got ourselves into the material. We tested the mud. We tried to make mock-ups with the people there, trying to improve the bamboo structures with mud. And what was also interesting, it was a wonderful way also to engage with the people there. And what was really good to see that the mud, I mean, you can involve everyone. You can involve the women, you can involve the children in doing this. And those children, 70% have either experienced rape or really murder, mostly also of their own parents. So they're really highly, highly traumatized. And I think, you know, having something to do, having some occupation, and those who have worked in mud or doing some ceramics or gardening, I think you can relate to it. It's a feeling that really grounds you, that de-stresses you, that it's really also healing. A lot of therapies are already using clay for therapeutical usage, and I think it would be very important that you're not just building buildings, but you also really can involve the people from the direct surrounding and also the children, and that would even have a healing effect. So these were just some of the basic mock-ups that we did. And also, of course, trying to understand the bamboo structures there. And, of course, also understanding the needs and the aspirations, the dreams of the children that they have. What was really interesting, we asked them, also their parents, if they could imagine to live in mud houses, and they were all saying no. They don't like that. And then I had a book with me from an Indian colleague, from Didi Constructor. She did beautiful earth houses, mud houses, and I showed them the pictures, and they were like, wow, this is beautiful. And then I was thinking, would you like to live in houses like this? He said, yes. And then I asked him, do you know what kind of material it's made of? They said, yes, it's mud. And then I asked him, do you think you can make it with this? Yes, of course we can. And that was for me a very moving moment, because that was just to see that the branding of this material is the biggest challenge to overcome. So right now we're designing on a larger scale for a more master plan scale with the students, but also going into the design of a childcare center that then shows really the beauty of this earth and structures. And our idea would be, it's still not, we don't know if it's going to be implemented, if it's going to realize, but the idea is to build several public facilities in the camp that show the potentials and the beauty of these structures and these materials, where the people learn the techniques, where they also have a way to get an income because they're paid for this work, and then they could take this money and this know-how to improve their own structures in a way. That is our hope. And I think beauty is not just something that is a byproduct. I think this is a very human, very basic human need as well. We all, doing something with beauty means also doing something with love and care. And I think it's very important that we build modern structures that prove that you can build with very old materials, but still they can be beautiful and they can look modern. It's sometimes people ask me in conferences, do you want to send us back to Stone Age, But why would I send someone back to Stone Age? Of course, it's possible to build very modern for our current needs with an old material. It's not the question how old something is, but it's a question of our creative ability to design in a way that we need meet our current needs. And of course, this is possible with old materials too. So this is our 3 hostels for a village in China. There were 12 architects invited, amongst them Kenko Kuman, Simon Welles, and others, to show the beauty of bamboo. And so I designed these 3 hostels. So the core is always out of rammed earth, and then attached are these platforms where then are the cocoons, the sleeping cocoons over it. And the craftsmanship was really extremely well done of the bamboo weaving. With the mud, I'm not so sure. They had a little problems with the mud, but altogether they did really a great job. And projects like this, I think, are needed because it's like that's usually how it looks in Chinese cities. And just within a couple of years, they consume more cement than the United States in 100 years. So it's enormous resources that just are being needed right now. And all these people have lived in houses made out of natural building materials before, out of stones, out of mud, out of bamboo, wood. And it's just an enormous increase of CO2 emissions, and this trend is not just China, but it's happening all over the world, and this is simply what we cannot afford anymore. We really need alternatives to cement, we need alternatives to steel, and I think that bamboo and earth are great. Of course, concrete is something else as mud, but I'm not totally against concrete, but I think there is a right use for the right material. And I think, for example, for foundation, it makes absolutely sense to use concrete because it needs to be waterproof, but it doesn't need to be in the walls. Therefore, for that, mud is much more suitable because it's much more better for the indoor climate. So I think we really have to be careful with the overuse of the materials that are really causing climate change. And I'm very much in favor of a carbon tax that make materials more expensive that are doing a harm for our climate. So there's a huge lobbyism going on, especially in Bangladesh. I mean, every 3 minutes you drive with the car on a highway, you see an advertisement of cement, of aluminium, of steel, and also, I mean, living in these houses need a lot of air conditioning because these materials cannot deal with the climate so well. So all these things comes in on top of it, and we really need alternatives. So going back to a project in Germany, which was just realized now, again with Martin Rauch, where we tried to bring in some elements that we can learn from developing countries. And for me, the most important thing is the beauty of the process. Designing the process is something we can really learn. Just if you remember the school, I think it's so important that you come together as a community and build something together, and that really creates a much stronger sense of team spirit, of community. And we had that in former times. The cities were coming together to build a cathedral or a chapel or a school or the house for the mayor or some sort of representative buildings, and that really made the community strong also over generations. And now we don't have these feelings anymore and these experiences anymore. And there's a saying of Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, and he's saying, if you want to bring war or fight against amongst people, just throw corns or throw grains amongst them, and they would all, try to be aggressively getting this. But if you want to unite them, then let them build the tower together. And I think that's a very powerful idea of him, and I have experienced that too as a child when I was with the scouts and when we were on scouts camp and we were erecting a tower together and all, trying to lift this tower, and you're there as a small girl and you're still on, pulling the rope to pull the tower up, and you feel strong and you feel part of this whole thing. This is really empowering. So here, with this competition, the task was to design a new altar, new ambos Lilian, for the church, which is a 1,000-year-old cathedral. That was the anniversary. It's in Worms, and the interior is very beautifully done by Balthasar Neumann, which is our German Michelangelo from the Baroque times. So you see the interior. And what we did not say, okay, we prefabricate, we make you a nice altar and we install it there. It's kind of top down. No, we said we turn the church into a construction site. We bring the material, and then all the people come together and we do the altar together. So we brought the material, which is the mud. It's local mud. We had it pre-mixed in front of the cathedral, and then we turned really the most holy place in the church in the construction site for a week, and then we started working. And it was really nice. A lot of people came and they heard it in the news and they started coming, and it was a really nice process. So it was also nice to see that, again, everyone could participate. All elderly people, that we had people coming with high heels, being in the shattering and ramming. The priest here, he was really getting more and more emotionally about it. It was very funny because in the beginning, I think he was a bit more critical because, there was also this was a competition, and the other proposal was a stelen altar who looked also very beautiful. So I think he was more in favor of that one in the beginning. But then he found in the Bible, he found when actually Moses got the 10, how do you tell orders or 10 rules of God, then God also told him to build an altar, and he gave him strict construction how to build the altar, and he told him, build the altar out of mud. So that was something that was making the Pope very happy, that we kind of used direct order from above. And we also brought in some special elements, like a Roman stone from some archaeological sites. Then we brought in some very personal things, like the old Bible from the previous priest, or the first wines in that region, or grapes and special grains. And then we had also people came and brought in some amulets that had one was a French a French soldier in Algeria in the war, and his mother had given him this to protect him. So a lot of personal stories went also in this altar. And of course also earth from all over the globe, and it was especially moving for me when I had some Indian soil with me, and I gave it to the Indian nuns who were also ramming, and when they inserted the mud in their own home soil into the altar, they were really crying, and you could really see that earth is so much symbolic and is such a meaningful material, much more than just a building material, but it is really an element as well. And then of course we had children also coming, and for some they had first time their hands in the mud, and they loved it. So they would then bring the material, they were mixing it like this, and they would bring it in and then ramming with the feet in the shuttering while singing. And then the moment when we removed the shuttering, that was interesting, because for me it wasn't important anymore how it looks like, because the process became just so important for this project. But then in the end we also found a very beautiful piece. And it was important. I mean, there's so much gold and you know, luxury and looseness around, but we thought, you know, our times we are not lacking materials, we are not lacking this sort of, you know, materialistic world. What we are lacking is relationships, and this should kind of be a symbol of this altar, is that it's creating also really this community. And also that gold you cannot eat, but with the mud, you know, you could just put water on it, and you could put your vineyard or your grains, plant your grains on and get your food out of it. So in that way it's more precious than gold. Yeah, that's for me an important symbol. I think the core problem of sustainability is that we are only thinking of the alpha but not of the omega, and decay and death is just part of nature. And to truly build sustainable and in harmony with nature, we also have really to design for the decay and really also let things go. And for me personally, I don't need my buildings to stand for eternity. Anyway, they don't stand for eternity. I'm happy to make decomposable architecture. I mean, we are living in a waste society, but we are trying to build as if it was standing forever. In fact, our buildings stand for 40, 50, 60, 70 years, and then they are being dismantled. And I think we really should accept that we need also to design for the decay of our buildings. So that's the last project. It's a project we are doing close to Ronda. It's a project called Ladoneira. It's a permaculture agrotourism project I'm doing with Ramon, and also Antonio is involved in that. And this is how Martin Rauch and I are designing. It's called clay storming. So we're using the clay also for designing in a very intuitive way. We first check, you know, with the squares over there, how much square meter we need to kind of place, and then we start moving things around. And then it goes like this, and this is now the thing that we kind of the end status of our design right now. So this is a lot of accommodations for tourists, but also there will be musicians and artists coming in, and also, you know, like experts who want to contribute to this permaculture project for a year or so. So this is all, it looks like old, but it's all new structures. We're using the pattern language of Christopher Alexander also. I think we all go to spaces like Malaga or Sevilla or Granada or in Greece where we have these beautiful spaces and these old patterns that we just know they work, these old squares, these arcades and whatever. And I think but when we are doing a master plan, then we all go for the grid, because this is kind of what we learn. But I think we can also build again in this kind of all quality of spaces, you know, like this also, you know, that a street doesn't have to be straight, but it can have like these niches and can have arcades and so on. I think this is again also what this old quality of spaces that we're trying to bring in this project, but still trying to make it with the facades then in a modern way. So this is what we are up to right now. Again, also a horse arena and stables for Lusitanos. Again, close to Ronda with La Donaira. And this is how it looks in our own home. My family is here. Yes, Miriam, Stefan. So I'm not just talking about mud. We are also living at home in a mud, with a lot of mud surrounded. It's not the full house built with mud because it's a 500-year-old building. So in Europe, we have a lot of existing structure. We don't need to build new all the time. We can also bring this material into old structures, and then we'll just bring in a much more comfort to our indoor climate. So this is our cozy corner at home. Miriam also got a little medicave in her room. And I think since this picture is 500 years old, I mean the city is 500 years old, and with all the technologies that we are having right now at our hands, with all the know-how that we have, if we add this know-how to these old techniques and to these old wisdoms, I think we are really able to do something very meaningful and very also sustainable for the future. And all around us and just below our feet, there are fantastic natural materials. Let's use them. And I'm really convinced that our homes, our workplaces, our cities and villages would not only become more healthy and more sustainable, but also more humane and beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.